G'day, Starlo here. On a recent visit to Tasmania, I spent a few days staying with my old fishing mate, Rory Muller, who nowadays lives in Primrose Sands, east of Hobart. Primrose Sands is a lovely part of the world set on the shores of Frederick Henry Bay, one of the partially sheltered bodies of water adjacent to the lower Derwent estuary. It's a big bay that offers at least some protection from anything short of gales and storms. There's a good boat ramp at Primrose Sands too, just a long cast from Rory's balcony, so it's not surprising that he spends a fair bit of time out there fishing. We hit the water at first light and it was bracingly cool despite being midsummer. Slowly starting to warm up, mate.
Yes.
We were casting baits and lures in 5 to 8 metres of water and the action wasn't long in coming. Although I wasn't too surprised when my first customer on that squidgy soft plastic turned out to be one of the region's ubiquitous sand flathead, Tasmania's most popular saltwater target species. I also wasn't too surprised that it was undersized. These southern sand flathead are an incredibly important fish for Tasmania's recreational anglers, but they do cop a lot of pressure, and their stocks were recently listed as being depleted. Both their numbers and average sizes have shrunk, especially in heavily fished areas, and anglers are being encouraged to reduce their take of these tasty little critters to let their numbers and sizes rebuild. This is going to be very important for the future of Tasmania's saltwater recreational fisheries. We were definitely keen to catch something other than flatties, but it's very hard to avoid catching them in these areas, so it's important to handle them correctly and quickly return the many undersized specimens to the water. Of course, they're not all tiny. Larger sandies do come along and they're always welcome. When I made this video, the state minimum legal length for sandies in Tasmania was 32 centimetres.
I shall measure him.
And the bag limit a rather generous 20 fish per person per day.
I'll tell you in a second.
Nearly 34. We kept this sand flathead, but we really hoped to catch a few other contenders to eat that night, and there are plenty of options in these cool southern waters. One of them's the abundant Australian salmon, better known to our Kiwi mates across the ditch as karwai. These fish are great fighters and actually quite tasty table fish if they're handled correctly, but I let this one go as Rory was quietly confident that we'd find something even better to eat this morning. Sure enough, next up I pinned an active, energetic fish on my soft plastic and light gear. I reckon I know what this is.
7. Better 7 maybe, or?
I think it's ready.
Oh, good.
This fish was giving me a really good run for my money on that ultralight brim gear in this shallow water. As snapper of any size always do, even the little ones. They're great fish. I love them. This is what we'd come out for.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yep.
Staying deep too.
Yeah, I just got to look at him. Chucks that net up, mate. They're here!
Well done. And they're such fun on a light gear.
Oh, yeah. Interestingly, they're a species that's becoming much more common and widespread in Tasmanian waters every year. Meanwhile, my other plastic had been grabbed by yet another tiny flathead, which did a wonderful job of spiking me as I unhooked it. Oh, ouch!
Yes.
Oh, look at all the blood. But Rory was busy down the other end of the boat with a surprise. That's a whiting.
It's a red spot.
That's a big red spot.
It's a
Holy
good one.
dooly. Have you ever seen them that big?
That's the biggest one I've caught down here.
I wonder if that's what those really good bites were you were missing because of the small mouth.
It's a red spot. That's the biggest red spot I've ever caught.
We'll have him.
This stuff.
Red spot or school whiting are a common target for trawlers along the southeastern seaboard of Australia and a great little table fish, although they're usually a fair bit smaller than this 30-centimetre specimen that Rory had just landed. And just to prove that it was no fluke, he followed up straight away with another one. It's another whiting. Oh, there must be a few down there. I'm going to put a little hook on them.
Yeah, gosh. What's the odds of that?
I know. That's twice you've hooked one like that. I reckon there might be a...
And they're a good size if they're all that size. Have you got any whiting hooks?
Yeah, you betcha.
Well, they're big baits that I'm using too.
Yeah. And that's squid.
Yeah.
There's got to be a few there to get a foul hook.
Yeah, I agree.
Try that.
Thank you.
Rory wasted no time tying on a long-shanked number 4 whiting hook, baited up with a little sliver of squid tentacle, and flicked his lightly weighted rig out. You're just on a little ball sinker, aren't you? Yeah. And of course, he hooked a snapper. Oh,
that's good.
You've got a ready on it straight away.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. Can you believe that?
You'll have to nurse him. How well do those pan-sized snapper fight on this light gear? They might be tiny by the standards of some other states, but they're a real prize in these far southern waters. Rory loves catching them as much here as he did back in New South Wales, and I can understand why. Oh, he's a nice fish. Oh, he's a good fish. Whiting hook.
Cheers, mate.
No worries. Look at that, cracking fish, high 30s, 38 or something.
That's the bit of bait.
That's just crazy. But what Rory pinned next was something much larger and heavier. That's a good thing, mate. I think you need to have a look at that. This fight went on for quite a while on the light gear, so I'll speed it up for you. Ooh, there he is. It's a shark, all right. Yeah, they go all right, don't they? Eventually, Rory's opponent was identified as a nice little gummy shark. Yeah, it's a proper gummy. It's got the spots in it. You can wrangle him. Although delicious, all sharks and rays are protected in Frederick Henry Bay, as well as several other Tasmanian estuaries and bays, so we happily returned this one to the water.
Right, ready?
Yep. If you're fishing down that way, make sure you check the regulations. It had been a great little early morning session, and as well as my one keeper flathead, we'd retained 4 plate-sized snapper and 3 of those succulent red spot whiting, more than enough for a couple of great meals. Not every fishing trip needs to be about spectacular catches or cricket score numbers. There's a genuine pleasure in putting together a modest meal with a mate, especially in a beautiful part of the world like this. It's all part of a fisherman's life, one that Rory and I have been sharing, along with the odd beer, for longer than we both care to remember. Until next time, tight lines.